Abby, you said, yeah.
On this agenda, is to just go ahead with the chairman elected so that the chairman has the right for the rest of the meeting.
Mr. Burns, you're out of order.
Well, so
that's for sure.
You're out of order. Please.
No doubt about that.
Do we need to adopt the bylaws?
First.
She is recorded, by the way.
You know, you need a chairman of the meeting, if not the chairman of the board.
We discussed earlier that Chandler would chair until the election. If that's
Sweet,
okay.
sweet Jesus, yes.
The way I would usually do it is I get that over the front. You know, I've got something running the show. You do it by acclamation.
I don't think.
But I would ask for the vote on the meeting and your approval.
Aaron, what is your last name? I need that.
Are you looking at the
What if I get voted out of office before I even get into office?
Any other
We expect
We
it.
expect it.
It's only 4:01.
Once it's called over, that's when we started that. I think it's on the left side.
What do you do for Lafayette?
Facilities and IT.
Strategically placed you near Aaron. That was a good idea. Smart.
Just kind of, you know, it laid out that way, and then when we looked, it was like, I'm down here, so if you have any questions. What's that?
Smart.
So what do you do at Purdue?
How many tickets did we sell with this?
Abby,
This fundraiser.
what do you do at Purdue?
I work for Steve Schultz. Do you know Steve? Steve's the kind of new in-house counsel. So I am an attorney, but I'm not Purdue's attorney. I work for Steve. I do a lot of public records responses, which is riveting, but good. That's right.
And would that be possible?
I hear a woman coming.
Oh man.
That sounds like
Nope, it's Mr. Schultz. And, oh, yes, and Julie. Sullivan, jeez. I call him Schultz. Oh. Bill, doing well, and you? You are?
Good.
Awesome.
Hey. How are you?
Good. We refuse to answer all of your questions.
Hey, excellent.
I worked on that today too.
Hey, excellent. I bet.
He's running a little bit late. He and I just came from a meeting, and that's the reason I'm late. So he'll join us shortly.
So just for everybody's awareness, this is being recorded. So for record purposes.
Yes.
I checked them all.
That is always on record.
Please don't make me go there. Go for it. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural meeting of the Joint Board. My name is Chandler Poole. I'm the Director of Development here in West Lafayette. I would like to note that this meeting has been called and is being held in accordance with the provisions of the Indiana Open Door Law with due notice given and posted. This is the preliminary organizational meeting of the Joint Board established under the interlocal agreement between the City of West Lafayette and the trustees of Purdue University. And our purpose tonight is primarily to address internal governance matters. I believe we should start with introductions of the Joint Board.
My name is Abby Daniels. I work at Purdue University as the Legal Services Coordinator.
I'm Chandler Poole. I'm the Director of Development for the City of West Lafayette.
I'm Dave Buck. I'm the Public Works Director for the City of West Lafayette.
I'm Julie Griffith, Vice President for Public Affairs at Purdue University.
Ken Sandel, I'm the Senior Director of Sponsored Program Services at Purdue University.
Tim Clark, Director of Facilities and IT for the City of West Lafayette.
We want to nominate Mr. Poole to chair the remainder of the meeting until the election of officers at this time.
Do you second that?
I will move that if that.
And I will second.
Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chandler, would you please carry on?
Thank you, sir.
That's the last time I'll ever say that.
I know.
Seamless.
We have an agenda in front of us that has been posted and for all of you to use. I believe after introduction of members, we are on to the orientation of the joint board purpose. Ken?
Yeah, I was going to take that just to give a brief history of the formation of the joint board. It goes back to discussions that happened between the university and the City of West Lafayette leading up to and during the annexation process. Our stated goals at that time was to enhance our long-standing relationship between Purdue and the City of West Lafayette and explore and build a new platform for sharing for a shared vision for the future through various projects. Past examples of that would include our Harrison Street project, 516 Northwestern, the US 231 project. Current examples are the Northwestern Avenue project, and perhaps future examples would be the State Street Master Planning implementation. The interlocal agreement that was signed by the mayor and the university treasurer memorialized agreements between the city and Purdue on how we would address and handle public works and public safety issues that would arise if the university were to become part of the city. We essentially agreed up front of the property that was involved in the annexation. We identified a map of what streets would remain under the control of the city, which ones would become the responsibility of Purdue. And in the agreement, we also defined responsibility for various standards, enhancements, ADA requirements, snow removal, and various other agreements. We updated a memorandum of understanding at that time that related to the jurisdiction of public safety and those matters. As part of the interlocal agreement, the joint board was proposed in that document to provide a consistent and equitable mechanism to address issues that may arise in the future related to interpretation and implementation of the interlocal agreement. So that's why we are formed and why we are here. Our purpose was really to administer the interlocal agreement and ensure that oversight was undertaken, to function as an advisory board that would meet and confer and make recommendations to our responsible executives in each of our organizations, and to address items of concern that were raised by the various members or our various organizations, and just further the cooperative efforts that were of mutual concern and common interest and shared responsibility. So out of all of that, our approach was to, and part of the interlocal agreement was the formation of a joint board for that purpose. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the adoption of the bylaws for this joint board. And I think I'm going to take a moment here and just kind of give you some highlights on the bylaws for the joint board. A draft of the bylaws was circulated in advance of this meeting, but there are a couple things that kind of need to be addressed and put out there so everyone understands. The bylaws state that the joint board has been established pursuant to two different items. The first was an interlocal cooperation agreement between the City of West Lafayette and the trustees of Purdue University, dated March 12, 2014, and also Indiana Code State Statute 36-1-7-1. The bylaws recognize the collective powers that are useful, necessary, or appropriate to administer the interlocal agreement and ensure joint oversight of the parties, as Ken has already described. We function as an advisory board to meet, confer, and make recommendations to the possible executives of each of the parties. We address items of concern raised by any member of the joint board with respect to the interpretation or implementation of the interlocal agreement, and to further cooperative efforts between the parties in areas of mutual concern, common interest, or shared responsibility. The bylaws establish the membership of the board. The joint board shall have 6 members, or 3 members from each party appointed by the responsible executive of such party. The bylaws establish a protocol for our meetings. They establish and make publicly available a schedule of regular scheduled meetings by the end of each calendar year for the next calendar year. Meetings shall occur no less frequently than quarterly. Special meetings of the joint board may be called as needed and be noticed in accordance with the Indiana Open Door Law. The bylaws discuss responsibility to elect officers from amongst its members, a chair, a vice chair, a secretary-treasurer, and an assistant secretary-treasurer, provided that the offices of the chair and the vice chair shall not be held by representatives of the same party during any given term, nor shall the offices of the secretary-treasurer and the assistant secretary-treasurer be held by representatives of the same party during any given term. The bylaws also contemplate joint undertakings of the joint board if we jointly hold or acquire any property, want to enter into a contract, procure goods and services, etc. The bylaws set forth expectations or guidelines for amending the bylaws in the future, keeping records of the meetings or actions of the board, maintaining a website, and resolving a dispute, which is described as escalating matters to the mayor of the city and the president of Purdue University for resolution. The mayor and the president may agree to refer any such matter to alternative dispute resolution as provided in the Indiana Rules of Court. So what I'd like to do is seek if there is a motion to adopt the bylaws of the joint board.
I'll move to adopt the bylaws of the board.
Right. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the bylaws?
Are there any edits or anything that anybody had? I think when we circulated them, I think they should be good.
Okay. Hearing none, I would call a matter to vote. All in favor of approving the bylaws, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 6-0. We now have bylaws, ladies and gentlemen. The next order of business would then be to elect officers for the joint board. And the first order of business would be to elect a chairperson for the joint board. Any nominations?
I would like to nominate Dave Buck.
We have a nomination for David Buck. Any other nominations?
I'll second.
A second. Any other nominations? Hearing none, call the vote on electing David Buck as the first chairperson of the joint board between City of West Lafayette and Purdue University. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against? Hearing none. Mr. Buck, congratulations.
Unanimous. Wow.
Now your meeting.
Thank you very much. We will continue right along. The next election of officers will be for the vice chairperson. I would like to open the floor for nominations for the office of vice chair for the joint board. Any nomination?
I nominate Ken Sandel as the vice chairperson.
I second that.
Mr. Sandel has been nominated as vice chair. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Hearing none, I would like to move for a vote. All those in favor of having Mr. Ken Sandel serve as the inaugural vice chair of the joint board, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Ken.
Thank you.
The next office up for election will be the office of Secretary Treasurer. Are there any nominations for Secretary Treasurer?
I'd like to nominate Abby Daniels.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any other nominations for Secretary Treasurer? Hearing none. All those in favor of having Abby Daniels serve as Secretary Treasurer of the Joint Board. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Abby will be our Secretary and Treasurer. Thank you very much. And nominations for Assistant Secretary Treasurer is the final office that we'll be taking nominations for, and I would open the floor for nominations for that.
I'd like to nominate Chandler Poole.
I'll second that. He's got to do something. Any other nominations for the Assistant Secretary Treasurer? Hearing none, close that floor. All those in favor of electing Chandler as the Assistant Secretary Treasurer, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Same sign. And we have our slate of officers. Thank you very much, everyone. Moving on the agenda, the next section is for new business, and the first item of new business that we have is a discussion on a petition to the Tippecanoe County Area Plan Commission. And as both Ken and Chandler, I believe, mentioned earlier, the interlocal cooperative agreement between the city and Purdue University has a section that talks about cooperation between the two entities on land use and development going forward. And I'm going to read directly from the interlocal for a few sections that pertain to that and read that into the record. Section 5, Cooperation on Land Use and Development, paragraph A. Subject to the university's power of preemption as an instrumentality of the state of Indiana, the Joint Board may review, endorse, and if deemed necessary by the Joint Board, recommend to the City and/or the Area Plan Commission of Tippecanoe County the adoption of land use and zoning regulations developed by Purdue University for the real property, 1, owned by Purdue University within the annexation area, and/or 2, owned by the Purdue Research Foundation within the annexation area and used for university purposes. In each case, with the aim of ensuring Purdue University's continued primacy on land use decisions for both classes of real property. Paragraph B, the Joint Board shall also develop, adopt, approve, and/or endorse, and if necessary, recommend to the City and/or the Area Plan Commission the adoption of land use and zoning regulations for a geographical area adjacent to and/or relating to Purdue University's existing campus. The interlocal agreement refers to that as the campus buffer area that would provide significant input by Purdue University and the city on any land use and zoning decisions within that campus buffer area. Such regulations could be by amendment or adoption of new administrative rules, by amendment of the bylaws of the Area Plan Commission, including without limitation action by the APC to create an official subcommittee with advisory authority over the campus buffer area as provided below, or by amendments to the Uniform Zoning Ordinance of Tippecanoe County as would be deemed appropriate. Paragraph C, as promptly as practicable following a date hereof, the parties shall, 1, cause an organizational meeting of the Joint Board to be held at which the Joint Board will consider the adoption of its bylaws, the adoption of initial operating protocols and interpretive guidelines for land use and development standards, and the identification of boundaries for the campus buffer area. And 2, jointly petition the APC to take such actions as are necessary to create an APC subcommittee, the members of which would be comprised of representatives of the city and Purdue University, and the purpose of which would be to review and provide input to all petitions going before the area plan and local board of zoning appeals related to areas within the campus buffer zone, and 2, to review and provide input to the Area Plan Commission on proposed uses of parcels within the campus buffer area to ensure that they are consistent with the land use plans, recommendations, or strategies developed by the city and/or Purdue University, and with the uses and development standards developed by such subcommittee as approved by the Area Plan Commission. Basically, what that section talks about is becoming a checkpoint agency with the Area Plan Commission. That is a terminology used within the zoning ordinance where the city itself, town of Battleground, other entities are named, whether it be city bus or even the school corporations, basically to provide automatic notice to this group, this body, when petitions or items come before the Area Plan Commission that would be in that zone of area that we're interested in having some input on, basically. So I would like to propose that we undertake these items from the interlocal agreement by taking action to petition the Area Plan Commission to recognize the Joint Board as a checkpoint agency. So, is there such a motion?
I'll move.
Discussion.
Yeah, I have a question.
Wait, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Now, let me open the floor for discussion on that item.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
If we're going to be looking at an area that we're going to be having a sphere of influence in as a joint board, make recommendations on, things of that nature, in front of you, and also reading into the record, we have a map here for the public to view as well.
Not that one.
Let the record reflect that Chandler dropped the map.
Each of you also have a map at your seat in front of you that is the same as you see there that I've opened up there for the public to see. Having understanding of the geographic area that we'd like to operate in as a joint board will be important. Worked with some people to kind of come up with an idea of where we believe the area of operation for the joint board, or area influence, or however you want to phrase it, would be, should be addressed. It needs to be discussed, put forth, and I think worked with APC on. Ken, you have something?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to say is I know the interlocal agreement refers to this area as the campus buffer zone. I'd like to propose it hereafter, and it's indicated in this way on the map, that we refer to it as the interlocal collaboration zone to better reflect the intent of this area and the way in which we would like to utilize, I guess, as a checkpoint agency, anything that occurs within this area that is submitted to the APC, that we refer to what our charge is or what our intended purpose is to provide input and collaboration into any development that occurs in that area.
I would agree. In making sure that we have the geographic boundaries established as to where we'll be operating will be critical for the APC to understand how we're going to work with them. And not only Purdue, PRF, the city, but also private landowners as well, going forward. So.
Would it be the board's intention that we prepare a draft petition for our consideration, including attachments such as this map?
Yes.
Is that kind of everyone's consensus?
Yes.
Can we talk a little bit about the area that borders some of the city of West Lafayette in this? It's quite jagged and doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
Sure.
You want to expand on that, Chandler?
Yeah. Working on this proposed map, what we wanted to do was basically embrace the land use plan that was done in the New Chauncey neighborhood. It's kind of you have a blow-up map area in your package as well. And the reason why it looks so jagged is this celebrates, embraces, respects the land use plan that was done through New Chauncey, where development will be permitted and encouraged in the New Chauncey land use plan. So it doesn't really overlap. It doesn't go beyond a board that's already been established and vetted through a public process. So that's why you see in the New Chauncey area, it really has a real jagged line, but it follows an established land use plan, allowing and encouraging redevelopment.
So that jagged line respects that, matches that, and areas where it's promoting development is included in our proposed zone, and areas that protect and do not allow are excluded. Correct?
Correct.
Great. Thanks for that clarification.
Mm-hmm.
So the area indicated in orange on the map are lands that are owned by the trustees of Purdue. Any lands that are identified in yellow are owned by the Purdue Research Foundation, and any privately held land is identified within this district as blue. And so those, by normal course, any project, any rezoning, anything that occurs for a project within this area, we would be seeking from the APC that when PRF, for PRF-owned land, or private landowners submit a project, that we would be notified by the Area Plan Commission so that we could then provide at least our thoughts, our ideas, our opinions on that development. And so it's defining the zone in which we wish to collaborate.
So I have a question regarding if Granite, for example, the big real estate agency or whatever here in town, says, I would like to petition to do a project or whatever in this area. Currently, that would go to West Lafayette, is that right? And they would, I mean, I don't know what the procedure is.
To do a development, or?
Yeah.
There are existing land use laws by our zoning ordinance that we've adopted that apply to parcels on this map. They do not apply per se to the gold because it is owned by Purdue. Mm-hmm. They may, depending on the use, apply to the yellow based on what PRF is currently using it for. If it's used for state use, it may not apply. The zoning laws may be exempted in that case. The areas left over would generally apply. Those zoning laws would apply. They would regulate by what rights the property owner, Granite, or whomever. Granite actually is a management company, but they may act on behalf of a property owner to do a project or development or redevelopment, some of which may be allowed by right, given the current zoning regulations on that parcel of land, and some may not. I believe the intent of this discussion would be to have input on those things that would go beyond the by right development and redevelopment, and things that would then come before the area plan for a change in those rights, either by a rezoning or by a variance request or even special exception, where the public and these checkpoint agencies are automatically given notice by sign postings, and in the case of checkpoint agencies, they are on a list of predetermined notices that the petitioner in that case would be required to send. So if somebody were to proverbially come and change the rules, we're going to get a chance to meet, confer, and decide that fits into what we think should happen, or that starts to become outside of what we would like to see happen as a direction for our community. So, does that help? Mm-hmm. Speaking of that, it does bring up what do we want to go by in terms of regulating our comments or formulating our comments in terms of standards. And one of the things I think that is also mentioned in the interlocal agreement is to come up with basically exactly that, a visionary document, if you will, for development of areas and lands and properties within and parcels within this collaboration zone, so that we can have a collective opportunity to collaborate, if you will, together. As Purdue does projects, University does projects, PRF, and then the city has projects come forward as well.
If I could add to that, I know visionary documents like the Good to Great that focused on Greater Lafayette as a community of choice, documents such as the recent State Street Master Plan document, they point to future opportunities to make our city and our campus better. I would like to, at least in some thoughts, see us more unified in our vision and our goals in a way that we can, I guess, guide and develop in the future, both on campus and off. For us to collaborate with each other and the landowners to develop a shared vision for future development and redevelopment in this area that's identified on the proposed map, whether that be by development of ideas along the lines of design and architectural standards, to site design guidelines, to various things such as signage, site features, crosswalks, plantings, safety enhancements, and so forth. If we could spend some time developing a set of guidelines that would be something that would guide the development for the future, something that we can all get behind, that would enhance the character of development, enhance the quality of place, ensure economic development opportunities, and certainly move in the direction of what's called out in these other visionary documents to become a community of choice for all. From the university's perspective, we hope these improvements certainly improve our ability to attract and retain prospective students, faculty, and staff that come into the community and stay for students for the time they're a student and for the employees as a place to live.
So, based on the discussion and some of the information that we've just discussed here since the motion was made to petition, would it be the board's pleasure to table that motion and prepare a little bit more information in the way of a draft petition, supporting information, and additional district development guidelines, if you will, for consideration at a future meeting or even our next meeting, whenever that may be scheduled?
If we could bring those back to the next meeting, at least the petition. I believe the development of the guidelines is a process that may take longer. And so if we could at least submit the map for consideration of everyone to make sure that that is the area, the collaboration zone that we want to propose to operate within, and develop the petition. And then we can work with the landowners and so forth over time to develop that set of guidelines.
Excellent point. I would so amend my motion, if there is a friendly amendment to that, or if there's a second that's needed. Yeah, I'll amend my motion to do that and include that so that we will table it until our next meeting and then pick it up again then for further discussion on the petition as a draft form and potentially accepting it at that time. Any other discussion on this item on the agenda? Okay, hearing none. The next item of business is project updates. I believe I'll start off on some of this. One of the things that we would like to be able to do is communicate and keep everybody up to speed on things that we're working on. Some of the items that the city has been working on with Purdue, most notably is Northwestern Avenue, possibly, as you've probably all been up and down Northwestern and seen a lot of the new concrete curbs and work that's going on. Our contractor is working on new railings and traffic signal equipment, as well as lighting that will all happen yet this fall. This is a project that we jointly worked with the university on and are continuing to work with the university on. Get to see Mr. Jim Knapp every other week at our progress update meeting with the contractor and everything, which is great. But both parties have had input into that design, and we're moving forward now through the construction, hopefully greatly improving pedestrian safety on that very difficult corridor between Grant Street and Mackey Arena up at Dodge. Right along in there, and actually happening tomorrow, we'll be removing some of the temporary fence so that we can celebrate the grand opening of Lang Hall. And I don't know, Chandler, if you want to talk a little about some of the other development that's really driven the need for that improvement on Northwestern Avenue.
We're very excited that the 720 building, also known as the Fuse building, has opened. Students have moved in. The retail tenants on the first floor have opened rather successfully. Jimmy John's, Jimmy John's, Subway, CVS, but also most importantly, Fresh City Market have all opened up just as they're for lunch today, and it was packed with students and residents. So it's a nice amenity. I know all of us have experienced the debate on the PD when we did that project, but I think it's a great thing for the community, so we're very, very happy about that.
What did you have for lunch?
Big chicken.
I thought you said sushi earlier.
And sushi.
And
And a salad.
Just on the other end of Northwestern, there's another project that's got a lot of progress developing. 225 Northwestern is another planned development. The former Barbary liquor site at the corner of North and Northwestern. And they have been making great progress given the weather that we've had this fall, and they hope to have that building under roof and begin interior construction through the winter months. So it's exciting to see that project going vertical so fast, but that will also change the character of Northwestern Avenue, and we anticipate continued improvements coming south of Grant Street on Northwestern possibly next summer. So that's something that we'd like to continue to work with Purdue on.
Where's that again, David?
It's just actually across the street, a block away from here. It's at the corner of North and Northwestern, if you know where the fire station is. Fire station number 1 is across the street on the north side of North Street.
Across from the library, you'd be more familiar with that.
Yeah, well, he said Carberry like this.
I didn't think you'd be familiar with that.
It was a bit of a landmark for many of the locals. It is going to increase pedestrian traffic at that intersection, and it's already a pretty busy intersection with some kind of unique angles, and I think technically 5 streets coming in, or 5 points, if you will. So it's definitely something on our radar screen that we're planning improvements for next year, and would like to continue, like I say, coordinating with the university for input and keeping that corridor looking nice and neat. So, anyone else with project updates?
I can provide a few. This summer and the start of this academic year marked the opening of several buildings on campus. On Harrison Street, we have an 850-car parking garage along Harrison. Health and Human Science, which is Lyles Porter Hall, opened. A lot of clinics, a lot of human clinics that we have on campus operate out of the Health and Human Science building, as well as a drug discovery building that supports Dr. Phil Lau and his research group in chemistry. Along Northwestern, Bailey Hall, the home of PMO, opened. You already mentioned Wang Hall, which the university is leasing a substantial portion of that building, which has been instrumental in our growth plan for the College of Engineering. Along 3rd Street, the Kroc Leadership Center, which was formerly called the Center for Student Excellence and Leadership across from the COREC, opened. And right next to it, 3rd Street Suites, which also involves a little bit of retail operation along there for the students who primarily walk from the residence halls into campus. Includes a Starbucks as well as a little mini mart for the students in the halls. We are embarking and continuing progress on Honors College, which will be along Russell. So I probably want to also note that we're appreciative on the university side of all the work that was done along Russell and other side streets this past summer to improve the sidewalks and curbs and streets there. I've heard a lot of really good comments on that, so appreciate that. And we're planning on continuing I think one of the most significant collaborative activities we have with the city right now is on the implementation plan for the State Street corridor. And so as progress continues there, we will have a lot of discussions amongst this board on that progress. So.
I fully agree. There's a lot going on. Which brings us to adding something else to our calendars. The next item is discussion of future meetings and dates. And as was mentioned earlier in the meeting, I believe during Ken or Chandler, I can't remember, one of the updates from the interlocal agreement that the joint board would meet quarterly, or that's a highlight from our bylaws, isn't it?
And minimum.
Yeah, at least meet quarterly, which would mean that we would meet once every 3 months. Is there discussion? Huh?
Just kidding.
Oh. Well, basically 3 months from now would put us into November, if I'm counting right, or December.
December.
Yeah. Okay. I can't count. Do we think that we would like to get together sooner than that to discuss this draft petition area plan? Any comment on feelings about meeting possibly in October or November even?
It'd be nice to meet a little earlier than that, just to, the earlier we can file the petition, the earlier we would get to file it with the APC in order to begin to provide, in a formal way, input into various projects. So I know the bylaws suggest that the chair and vice chair or any of the members can call for a meeting. If we can at least propose, let's see what progress we can make, see where we stand when we're ready with a draft, that we would call a meeting.
You're right. There are provisions for special meetings to be able to be called as needed. And just since this is our first meeting, I will ask, does this time of day or this particular day of week generally work for the board members?
I can be flexible.
As long as there's enough advance notice?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
Is that agreed?
Yes.
Okay. Would it be... toward the end of October to look for another meeting day? Acceptable? Do we want to just firm this up right now?
Or do we wait until we know we've made a little progress on the document itself?
Can, I guess, you and I check progress and then get back to the group in terms of the date?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you're saying...
But we target for the
Anticipating that.
end of October.
We'll look for the last third or fourth week of October, which is the week of the 20th or the week of the 27th.
That's fine.
Possibly going to be gone for that. Neither here nor there.
Did we actually vote on your motion?
Which vote?
Your amended motion from...
Table.
Okay.
Petition
Are we, okay, yes. Did we, okay.
Do we have to vote on tabling a motion?
Maybe you're gonna look at me.
Do we have to vote on tabling a motion? There you go. On tabling?
The initial
Yes.
motion.
The initial motion was motioned and seconded, but not voted. It was discussed and tabled. So just as a point of clarification and order, I would like to... Is there any objection to a unanimous consensus to table the motion previously on the agenda?
No.
No.
Very well. It is tabled. There you go.
Sorry to throw that in.
Thanks, Ken.
Record
I
shows.
didn't try to get my notes out right.
Could I enter into the record? I got a call on the way here that we've received Attorney General approval for our interlocal agreement. Although we'll receive a formal letter next week, we got approval this afternoon, so perfect timing.
That's awesome.
So stay tuned for future meetings. We will be targeting the end of October as progress can be made on this petition between Ken and myself. And then we will go through the proper postings and notices as we did for this meeting to have our second meeting. We may also want to be able and be prepared at that time as an agenda item to possibly schedule our regular scheduled meetings for the 2015 calendar year, say, or something of that nature.
Can I pose a question to council? With the receiving notification of the Attorney General's approval, is that effective upon receipt? So the actions that we took today would have to be ratified at our next meeting? Or because we have such notification, this is an official action? Thank you.
Very good. Well, that brings us to public comment on our agenda. Are there any members of the public wishing to make comment at this time?
Where's Zach?
Okay, well, hearing none, I would seek a motion for adjourn.
So moved.
I second.
We are adjourned.
Fine job. Congratulations. We'll have some fun.
You didn't do nearly as well as I did.